Good afternoon. Colleagues, lend me your ears and let us see what we can discover together about our theme, A Kingdom for a Mirth, Shakespeare's fatal Cleopatra and the authorship question. Let's begin with the problem, begin at the end and work our way back to see how the end came to be what it is, and see if the problem becomes a triumph.
What was this noise?
Here is a rural fellow that will not be denied your highness' presence. He brings you figs.
Let him come in. But poor an instrument may do a noble deed. He brings me liberty, my resolutions placed, and I have nothing of woman in me. Now, from head to foot, I am marble constant. Now, the fleeting moon, no planet is of mine.
This is the man.
Avoid and leave him. Hast thou the pretty worm of Nilus there, which kills and pains not?
Truly, I have him. But I would not be the party that should desire you to touch him. For his biting is immortal. Those that do die of it do seldom or never recover.
Rememberest thou any that have died on?
Well, very many men and women too. I heard of one of them no longer than yesterday, a very honest woman, but something given to lie, as a woman should not do, but in the way of honesty. How she died of the biting of it, what pain she felt. Truly, she makes a very good report of the worm, but he that believes all they say shall never be saved by half that they do. But this is most certain. The worm's an odd worm.
Get thee hence. Farewell.
I wish you all joy of the worm.
Farewell.
You must think this, look you, that the worm will do his kind.
Aye, farewell.
Look you! The worm is not to be trusted, but in the keeping of wise people, for indeed there is no goodness in the worm.
Take thou no care, it shall be heeded.
Very good. Give it nothing, I pray you, for it is not worth the feeding.
Will it eat me?
Must not think I'm so simple, but I know the devil himself will not eat a woman. I know that a woman is a dish for the gods. I wish you joy of the worm.
You are watching clips of Antony and Cleopatra from the Stratford, Ontario production, directed by Barry Average, starring Geraint Wyn Davies and Yana McIntosh. I have endeavored without success to learn the name of the actor who is playing the countryman in this scene. If anyone can figure that out, let me know. Richard Uzunian, writing for the Toronto Star, praises the unquenchable warmth of Wyn Davies' Antony and the overwhelming power of McIntosh's Cleopatra in a filmic version in which small scenes that were gems on the stage become artful cinematic choices. Yet I hope that even, and perhaps especially in a fine production like this one, we can hear that there's a problem here. As Robert Ornstein explains, this scene would be less difficult if it were more obviously solemn and serious. The comic note struck in her conversation with the clown persists and mingles with the ceremonial mystery of Cleopatra's death. Now and then we may wish that Cleopatra had a more sober view of her own catastrophe, which she treats as a marriage feast, not where she eats, but where she is eaten, a tender domestic scene, an apotheosis, and even a practical joke on the universal landlord, Caesar. And in case you weren't counting, the scene repeats the word worm 9 times. Why worm? In 1998, Richard Whalen, writing in the Shakespeare Oxford newsletter, gave an answer. The plays he wrote are full of puns and wordplay, some of it multilingual. The English worm thus can be seen here as a pun on the French ver, standing for de Ver, the English dramatist with the French surname. I was still in graduate school, and at the time I was not immediately fully convinced by Richard Whalen's argument. Let me tell you why I changed my mind. And let's start with, what does the literary establishment have to say about this concept? Well, we could hardly get more establishment than Dr. Johnson, the editor of the Oxford English Dictionary, and quite a fine Shakespeare scholar in his own right. A quibble, writes Johnson, is to Shakespeare what luminous vapors are to the traveler. He follows it at all adventures. It is sure to lead him out of his way and sure to engulf him in the mire. It has some malignant power over his mind, and its fascinations are irresistible. A quibble was to him the fatal Cleopatra, for which he lost the world. But what do modern literary scholars who study puns have to say about this? Well, let's listen to Jackie Rubenstein in his A Dictionary of Shakespeare's Sexual Puns and Their Significance. You probably didn't know that such a book exists, but it does, and it's quite an interesting book. According to Rubenstein, when lines seem trite, self-evident, or repetitive, or even lacking in sense, it may be that a pun carries the meaning. Samuel Johnson's criticism should be reversed. Reason, propriety, and truth were not sacrificed by the Shakespearean quibble. They emerge from it. So with this in mind, as a brief introduction, we have seen that there's a problem, the repetition of the word worm, and we are exploring the possibility that this is because Shakespeare is punning on the name de Ver. Let's move forward now in the play and take a look at these 6 themes, each one briefly: anachronism or allegory, fortune telling, transmutation, animal spirits, Shakespeare's fatal Cleopatra in 5-2, and Caesar's bad fortune and the author's design. This play is full of anachronism. Cleopatra plays billiards, a game unknown in ancient Egypt, according to most authorities. Indeed, Shakespeare approaches anachronism from several different perspectives in this play. Anachronism just, of course, meaning something is out of time. It's not properly fitted to the time it belongs in. And this makes it difficult, because he does this several times. It's difficult to believe he's not using this for his own allegorical or prophetic purposes. And in the second example, Cleopatra complains that posterity will see a child actor buoy her greatness in the posture of a whore. How could Cleopatra know that in the Elizabethan age, boys would play female roles? Perhaps for the first time, moreover, to make the point vivid, Shakespeare transforms the noun boy into a verb. Such violations of historical logic and grammar have often been regarded as aesthetic defects or proof of Shakespeare's historical naivete. But is that really what they are? Let's try fortune telling. In the second scene, we overhear Charmian and Iris begging to have their fortunes told by the soothsayer. Let's listen.
Where's the soothsayer that you praised so to the queen? Oh, that I knew this husband, which you say must change his horns with garland.
Soothsayer, your will.
Is this the man? Is you, sir, that know things?
In nature's infinite book of secrecy, a little I can read. Show him your hand.
Good sir, give me good fortune.
I make not but foresee.
Pray then foresee me one.
You shall be yet far fairer than you are.
He means in flesh?
No, you shall paint when you are old.
Wrinkles forbid.
Vex not his prescience, be attentive.
Hush!
In this scene, characters in Cleopatra's royal household are joking about having their fortunes told. This is Shakespeare's way of announcing that a major theme of the play will be fortune, a word that appears with slight variations 44 times in this play. Given that this is a historical drama about historical figures, The distinguished American critic Kenneth Burke reminds us, and this is a little difficult, but by the time we're finished, I think you will understand this. Burke says, fortune is none other than the form given by the playwright to the play. In other words, how does this play shape our understanding of the fortunes of the historical characters it portrays, characters like Cleopatra, Antony, or Caesar? Before we can answer this question, we must consider our third topic, transmutation. Antony and Cleopatra is a play rich in allusions to ancient and Renaissance belief in the fourfold typology of matter, air, water, fire, and earth. All these forms of being are in an unstable state of flux in every scene in this play. It is packed with complex alchemical imagery, frequently involving melting, mixing, dissolving, or other forms of transmutation of the basic elements. And let me just recommend here, for those interested specifically in this alchemical reading of the play, Julia Cleave's wonderful and alchemical reading of Shakespeare's Antony and Cleopatra, which you can find online at Temenos Online. But the alchemical dimensions of this play have long been understood by Shakespeare scholars. Whatever our elements, confirms G. Wilson Knight, whether of feasting and drinking, passionate lust, or military splendor, they are transformed by a peculiar alchemy into essences intensely spiritual and rarefied. The play views its world as one rising from matter to spirit, and hence seeing all things in terms not of their immediate appeal, but of their potential significance. We find that all here is from the first finely gilded with the tint of spiritual apprehension, all of which is expressive, I would argue, of the influence of Ovid's Metamorphosis on Shakespeare's reading of Plutarch and the Antony and Cleopatra story. Our fourth theme is transmigration. While transmutation refers to the remaking of physical forms, transmigration involves the passage of some spiritual essence or value, the human soul perhaps, into a new physical form, often that of an animal. The image that you see here is what I found searching online under the search term transmigration. And I was fascinated by it, so let me tell you what this is an image of. This is a group of dancers and actors, performers from the Ojibwe culture in British Columbia. And this is what they say about their production called Transmigration. Transmigration tells the story of this troubled genius who shed light on the identity crisis that was becoming an overwhelming part of the Native Canadian experience. And what I find fascinating about that quotation is that if you just stop the sentence just shy of the conclusion, it applies equally to the topic that we are considering here. We are remembering the story of a troubled genius who has shed light on the human identity crisis. Transmigration is a major motif in this play. In scene 2-7, the drunken partygoers on board Pompey's barge, suspended in a crocodile world between sea and land, discuss crocodiles and transmigration. And Antony says, the crocodile lives by that which nourisheth it, and the elements once out of it, it transmigrates. In the play's hermetic alchemical dimension, animals represent a stage in the soul's transmigration through the cosmos. By observing, interacting with, and sometimes imitating animals, humans come to know themselves through a process of identification or rejection. Somewhere between transmigration and transmutation, in this play, characters assume various animal attributes, becoming spirit animals. For example, the play makes much of Cleopatra's own serpentine associations, or Antony's with the horse, which was associated with lust in a tradition going back long before Shakespeare.
Charmian, where thinkst thou he is now? Stands he or sits he? Or does he walk?
Or is he on his horse?
Oh, happy horse, to bear the weight of Antony. Do bravely, horse. For what's thou whom thou movest? The demi-atlas of the earth, the arm and virginet of men. He's speaking now, or murmuring. Where's my serpent of old Nile? Or so he calls me. Oh, now I feed myself with most delicious poison. Think on me that am with Phoebus, amorous pinches, black and wrinkled deep in time. Broad-fronted Caesar, when thou wast here above the ground, I was a morsel for a monarch.
He's speaking now. Where's my serpent of old Nile? From Mackenzie Herbert's exceptional manuscript essay, The Spirit Animals of Shakespeare, we can put this in a little bit larger context. She writes that through the symbolic connection of Cleopatra to the snake or the asp, quote, Shakespeare has created what modern readers would call a spirit animal for his character. This theme of characters aligning with certain animal imagery and traits is repeated throughout Shakespeare's plays, resulting in a multitude of animal identities that provide further insight on the character as a multi-dimensional creation. We should add that such spirit animals also provide higher functions in the plays than merely providing character development. They do that, but they do also much more. Let's find out. Cleopatra's serpentine associations were not invented by Shakespeare. They are already visible in the Potomac era bas-relief on the left and Michelangelo in the sketch on the right. I'm not sure actually which way you guys are seeing that, so that's my right and left. Michelangelo is still on the same wavelength, obviously, in this 1533 sketch of Cleopatra's very snaky tresses. Transmutation goes both ways. It can be an act of love or an act of anger.
In thy faith that Antony be free and healthful, so tart a favor to trumpet such good tidings. If not well, thou shouldst come like a fury crowned with snakes, not like a formal man.
Will't please you, hear me.
I have a mind to strike thee ere thou speakst. And if thou say Antony lives, is well, or friends with Caesar, or not captive to him, I'll set thee in a shower of gold, and hail rich pearls upon thee.
Madam, he's well.
Well said.
Oh, and friends with Caesar.
Thou art an honest man.
Caesar and he are greater friends than ever.
Make thee a fortune from me.
But yet, madam,
I do not like but yet. It does allay the good precedent. Spy upon but yet is at a jailer to bring forth some monstrous malefactor. Prithee, friend, pour out the pack of matter to mine ear, the good and bad together. He's friends with Caesar. Send of help, thou sayest, and thou sayest free.
free, madam. No, I made no such report. He's bounded to Octavia.
For what's the turn?
For the best turn in the bed. Madam, he's married to Octavia.
Most infectious pestilence upon me!
Good madam, patience!
What say you? Hence, horrible for a stern mine eyes like balls before me. Here thy head! Thou shalt be whipped with wire and stewed in brine, smarting and lingering tickle.
Oh, gracious madam, I beg to bring the news, make not the match.
Say it is not so. A province I will give thee and make thy fortunes proud. The blow thou hast shall make thy peace for moving me to rage, and I will boot thee with what gift beside thy modesty can beg.
He's married, madam.
Rogue, thou hast lived too long.
Nay, then I'll run. What mean you, madam? I have made no fault.
Good madam, keep yourself within yourself. The man is innocent. Some innocent escape not the thunderbolt. Melt Egypt into Nile, and kindly creatures turn all to serpents.
In this play, Cleopatra's association with the snake is complex and ethically charged. She herself, it seems, can punish other humans by turning them into animals, especially snakes, melt Egypt into Nile, and kindly creatures turn all to serpents. Notice also that this utterance from the climax of a series of verbal and even physical threats and physical actions rising to a crescendo in which eventually not merely the messenger, but the entire land is threatened with cataclysm. And this speech immediately follows Charmian's "Good madam, keep yourself within yourself." Kenneth Burke again. Antony, he says, is a warrior who is languishing as the result of a sexual infatuation with an exotic serpent of old Nile, who eventually kills herself by the sting of a serpent. The serpent is a unifying symbol in the play. And what Burke calls a serpent is, of course, in the text, in the scene we just saw, called a worm. And it is within this larger hermetic, alchemical, and symbolic context that we should interpret the significance of that word worm as a symbol and an embodiment of a spiritual being. Plutarch records that, quote, some report that this aspic was brought into her in the basket with figs, and that she had commanded them to hide it under the fig leaves, that when she should take it out of the figs, the aspic should bite her before she should see her. Shakespeare elaborates this part of Plutarch into 36 lines of obscure and sexually charged comedy between Cleopatra and the countryman who brings the basket. Now, we can verify the significance of the different naming conventions of the play by collating them, as I've done for you on this screen. The word worm occurs only in the Cleopatra countryman scene, where it is used 9 times. And for what it is worth, the countryman calls the worm an odd worm. Frankie Rubinstein explains that though a pun need not be repeated in order to be valid, when it is, we feel confirmed in our judgment. But what kind of a worm must only be kept by the wise? In qualifying Richard Whalen's hypothesis, we should acknowledge that the worm is not, or is not only, a man. He is also an idea that must be kept safely by the wise, since, as the countryman declares, there is no goodness in the worm. This statement links both Shakespeare's play and, more specifically, the figure of the worm within the play to Renaissance ideals of esotericism, of the belief that the truth can only be expressed, so to speak, between the lines. The link was reinforced for English Protestants in the Geneva Bible note to Isaiah 66:24, in which the worm becomes a memento mori, a worm of conscience. Indeed, the doctrine that dangerous ideas must be safeguarded by the wise is the core philosophical value of this broad tradition of esoteric discourse, which Arthur Melzer documents in this 2014 University of Chicago study, Philosophy Between the Lines. The book demonstrates convincingly that all philosophical discourse, and therefore all poetry before the 19th century, was esoteric by intent and design. Theme number 6, Caesar's bad fortune. We all know the cliche, the winners write history. Not in this play. In this play, Caesar wins money but loses hearts from start to finish. Caesar marries his sister to a man he despises and then wars to erase her dishonor. He hungers for Cleopatra, but his desire to possess her is more shameless and more contemptible. He is indifferent to Antony's fate. He would be content if Cleopatra murders her lover. He lies to Cleopatra, cajoles her, and threatens her children in order to keep her alive so that she may be displayed as his trophy in Rome. And again, these are direct quotes or nearly direct quotes from Robert Ornstein. Kenneth Burke reminds us, and I'm going to give you that quote again and give you a little more context for it. Kenneth Burke reminds us, quote, the playwright in this final scene, and he means the scene we just saw plus the scene we're about to see, 5-2, The playwright in this final scene skillfully directs our attention toward the thoughts of destiny and away from thoughts to do with the fact that fortune is none other than the form given by the playwright to the play. There's no way around it. The soothsayer may say that Antony will lose at every game of chance to Caesar, but it is Caesar who has the worst luck in this play. He aimed to humiliate Cleopatra in triumph through the streets of Rome. Instead, her Roman virtue outwits and defeats him. She stages her own ceremonial triumph, accompanied by her worm. The playwright's design, as Kenneth Burke has explained, imposes dramatic fortune on Caesar. Let's listen one more time.
I am fire and air. My other elements I give to baser life. So, have you done? Come then, take the last warmth from my lips. Farewell, kind Charmian. Iris, long farewell. But I the aspic in my lips dost fall. Thou in nature can so gently part. The stroke of death is as a lover's pinch, which hurts and is desired. Dost thou lie still? If thus thou vanishest, thou tells the world it is not worth leave taking.
Dissolve thick cloud and rain, that I may say the gods themselves do weep.
This proves me base. If she first meet the curled Antony, he'll make demand of her and spend that kiss which is my heaven to have. Thou mortal wretch, is not intrinsic of life, but once untie. Poor venomous fool, be angry and dispatch. Oh, couldst thou speak, that I might hear thee call great Caesar ass, unpolicy.
Oh, Eastern Star!
To avoid being returned to Rome in humiliating triumph, Cleopatra meets her death by snakebite. The scene, as Julia Cleave tells us, is staged as a hierosgamos, a sacred marriage, and Cleopatra's spouse is the worm. And let's listen once more to what we just heard, because there's a lot in this speech. Cleopatra says, "Come thou mortal wretch, with thy sharp teeth, this knot intrinsicate of life at once untie. Poor venomous fool." She's speaking directly to the worm. "Poor venomous fool, be angry and dispatch. Oh, couldst thou speak, that I might hear thee call great Caesar ass, unpolicied." To which Charmian, in anticipation of the Christian Annunciation, calls out, "O Eastern Star." Cleopatra's speech is itself a not intrinsicate, for why should the Queen of Egypt command a worm to speak, to call out great Caesar, an ass, unpolicied? To the rational mind, it is ridiculous, but it does satisfy the conditions for authorial self-reference. The play's most potent expression of Caesar's bad fortune is expressed in the form of Cleopatra's wish for the worm to speak. And this is, if you like, Shakespeare's wormhole in time, activated by his fatal Cleopatra. If you enjoyed this talk, I welcome you to get a hold of a copy of the forthcoming entire talk written by myself and my wife, Shelley Maycock, which is forthcoming in the fall 2022 Shakespeare in Rome special edition of Critical Survey, edited by Graham Holderness at Hertfordshire University, and with both Stanley Wells and Sir Derek Jacobi, among others, on its editorial board. And in closing, I would just like to give a little plug for my friend Michael Del Hoyt's book. If you want to know more about how wonderful this play is from an Oxfordian point of view, check out this wonderful paperback with lots of great notes to which my understanding is greatly indebted. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Roger. That was excellent. Bravo. Lots of kudos from your colleagues in the chat. And just a couple of questions. One was the publisher and the date of the Illusions book. If that's available and you want to share it, that would be great. And then Rick Wagaman also wanted to commend you on always citing your fellow Oxfordian scholars. So any information on the book? Yeah, sorry.
There is. So what's happening is the book is still being typeset, I believe, and we have money we're going to print in a limited edition. And this is often done in publishing. You do all the work and then you market it again to the publisher in a very finished product. And so that's what we're doing. And so we don't know either the when or the who yet, but it should be out in a limited edition of maybe 20 copies or so within, hopefully, shortly.
Great, that's so exciting. Well, thank you again for a fascinating talk.